Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Today we'll be discussing the Penalty Enhancements Demand Response Investigation and Tolling Straw Proposal. My name is Isabella Nicosia, representing ISO Stakeholder Affairs, and I'll be facilitating the web conference today just for a few minutes, and then I'll turn things over to Brenda Corona here in a little while when she's able to join. But we also have Dinesh Dasgupta on the line, who's been our policy lead for this initiative. And then before we get started, just wanted to remind everyone that the slides are available out on the PEDRIT initiative webpage, and you can get to that page by going to kaiso.com, and then under the Stay Informed tab, you'll see the policy initiatives link. If you click that, it'll take you out to our main initiative landing page, where you can find the initiative webpage, and then these slides will be one of the very first items posted there. So as usual, this call is being recorded for informational and convenience purposes only, so any related transcription should not be reprinted without the ISO's permission. If you do need technical assistance at any point during the meeting today, you can send a chat to our event producer. Our event producer today is Brian. And then we will be pausing periodically to take questions and comments. So if you connected to audio through your computer or use the Call Me option in WebEx, you can raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon, which is located at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in separately to the web conference, you'll need to press #2 to raise your hand. And just a reminder to please remember to state your name and affiliation before making your comment or asking your question, just so we know who the comment or question is coming from. And we'll pause later on before taking questions to remind you all of those instructions. And then you can also send your question or comment through the chat to either Brenda Corona when she joins us, or you can send it to all panelists. So for today's agenda, in just a moment, I'm going to turn things over to Dinesh to start with some background, and then we'll get into discussion on the straw proposal and leave time for Q&A, and then also leave some time today for open discussion on the straw proposal and initiative as a whole, and then cover some next steps at the end of today's call. And then this graphic here just shows where we're currently at in the ISO's policy initiative stakeholder process. So we're here under the proposal development stage of the process at the straw proposal. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Dinesh for some background, and we'll get started.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Isabella. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dinesh, and I am the policy lead for this initiative. PEDRIT seeks to address deferred topics from the Rules of Conduct Enhancements Initiative. Next slide, please. So these topics were discussed at the Rules of Conduct Enhancements workshop on June 7th, 2023. All proposed changes affect the Rules of Conduct, Section 37 of the tariff. And the purpose of the Rules of Conduct, just a little bit of background, is to provide fair notice and an equal environment for market participants, redress market manipulation and anti-competitive behavior, and foster general confidence in markets. As policy lead for PEDRIT, I strive to be as transparent, respectful, and responsive to feedback as possible. I hope and expect that you all will do the same as we work together to improve our shared market. Next slide, please. So Rules of Conduct Enhancements, formerly known as Track 1, but also Rules of Conduct Enhancements more broadly, was implemented this past Monday after receiving approval from the Joint ISO Board and WEM governing body and FERC. Included enhancements were related to the 4 listed topics with particular focus on enhancing the penalties for metadata submittal non-compliance. PEDRIT will seek to define submission requirements and penalty structure for demand response monitoring data, streamline the Rules of Conduct investigative process, update the penalty tolling process, and discuss a potential inaccurate metadata materiality threshold or waiver. Next slide, please. Tentatively, PEDRIT will have 2 straw proposal iterations prior to the draft final proposal, with potential to change based off of stakeholder feedback. This timeline leads to PEDRIT being presented to the Joint ISO Board and WEM governing body in September. The full draft timeline, including future stakeholder meeting dates, is located in the straw proposal. Given that the rules of conduct applies to all market participants, PEDRIT is classified under joint authority at this time. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're going to go into the topics. We'll go through each individual topic, and then after each presentation of the topic, we'll pause for questions and comments. We're really excited to hear your feedback about the things that are the PEDRIT initiative, and hope that you will engage either here or via written comments that are due on the 19th of April. Next slide, please. So currently, missing or late monitoring data is not penalized due to disproportionate penalty design and an undefined submission timeline. The PEDRIT straw proposal recommends T plus 52B as a submission deadline with a flat $1,000 penalty for late data and an additional flat $3,000 for missing data past T plus 214B. This penalty would be applied per SCID and be the same irrespective of its one or multiple missing monitoring data files. For example, let's say there's scheduling coordinator Z submits 2 monitoring data files for 10 DR resources on T plus 55B, which is 3 days after the T plus 52B submission deadline. That penalty would be $1,000 since the scheduling coordinator submitted monitoring data late for 1 trading day. As a note, one stakeholder expressed desire for a cure period, or alternatively allowing DR resources to estimate any missing meter data to meet the deadline without being penalized for any inaccuracies. This was after the introduction of the topic last year at the workshop. PEDRIT proposes changing the penalty from a per day to a per trading day accrual and limiting sanctions to non-submittal of DR monitoring data. Another stakeholder requested clarification on why 90 days of historical data is required for monitoring purposes. This stakeholder flagged that 90 days may present a challenge for new customers who may not have had 90 days of historical data, but who have sufficient meter data to perform the settlement calculation. This stakeholder requests reducing the requirement of historical days from 90 days to 45 days. One of the reasons, big reason why it's 90 days is because one of the baseline methods requires 90 days of historical monitoring data, but many of the other ones, 45 days would be acceptable. The PEDRIT team would like additional feedback from stakeholders on this proposal from a fellow stakeholder, and also on the priority of this topic via verbal comments here or written comments. So at this time, let's turn it over to Ryan to give instructions on how to provide verbal feedback at this time.
All right. So for all the attendees, to submit a written question, enter it in the chat panel message box. Please make sure to select all panelists from the drop-down menu and then send. To indicate you want to ask a question verbally on WebEx, click the raise hand icon at the bottom center of your screen. You will hear a beep tone when you're unmuted. At that time, state your name and question. And for those on the phone only line, please dial #2 to raise your hand. You will hear a beep tone when you're unmuted, and then at that time, state your name and question. I'll turn it back over to you, Dinesh.
Yeah. And I guess at this point, I'm turning it over to stakeholders too.
I don't see any questions, Dinesh.
Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, looks like we just got one through the chat. Yep. The penalty is assessed to SC, which will then recover from the DRP, or is the penalty directly assessed of the DRP?
My understanding is that the penalty is assessed to the SC, and then the recovery happens afterwards from the DRP. Angelica, did you have anything that you'd like to add about that question? I think we're good then. Yes, I believe the penalty is assessed to the SC, and then the demand resource provider is like, because we our engagement on the penalty front is with the scheduling coordinator rather than the.
Sorry, I was double muted. Yeah, you're correct, Dinesh. Our financial responsibility is or association is with the SC directly. So any recovery would be between the SC and the DRP. You're correct.
Thank you, Angelica. Awesome. And just to note, we will later on also have an open space for open discussion if anything comes later on in this meeting. And then there's also ability for written comments. And frankly, if you just want to email us as well, that's great too. We're happy to chat about any proposal. Next slide, please. So the next topic is updating the penalty tolling process. So currently, the FERC penalty tolling process, or the appeal to FERC penalty tolling process, requires upfront payment. So let's say stakeholder appeals to the penalty that we give to FERC, and then informs the ISO by the dispute deadline. The ISO returns the money pending FERC's decision. Now, this current process requires that upfront payment, and then you give it back if we get all the information we need. The straw proposal recommends getting rid of this upfront payment. Instead, the entity would have 30 days to provide the ISO with evidence of a FERC appeal. If no appeal, then the ISO will collect the penalty amount. Just a flag on this topic. So from my understanding, FERC has recently indicated in a penalty appeal case that it considers the dispute deadline as an indicator of timeliness, not only for tolling, but for filing at FERC. So our proposal is to change that date from 22 business days to 30 days. It's roughly the same. It's more in terms of helping us streamline our administrative processes internally. But feel free to let us know verbally or in written comments whether that number gives you all enough time or gives stakeholders enough time while maintaining timeliness for ISO processes. This is a new development. We're happy to kind of consider any feedback on this topic. And yeah, just giving you that heads up. Okay. Any questions or verbal feedback at this time?
Hi, Dinesh. I don't see any more questions, but hopefully those folks could submit their questions through the chat. Make sure to also include your affiliation so we know who is asking the question. Thank you.
That's a great idea, Brenda. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll keep it moving then. Next slide, please.
Dinesh, we have a hand up.
Oh, yeah. Jen, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Please, someone unmute Jen.
Caller, go ahead. You're unmuted.
I just wanted to make sure I understood. Could you go back to the previous slide? Thank you. So in looking at the draft proposal, the original was to essentially remove the upfront payment on the, is that changing, or can you just maybe walk me through? I just want to make sure I understand what's changed, if anything has changed from the proposal itself.
From the straw proposal or from a prior workshop? Oh, from the straw proposal.
Okay.
Yeah, so the straw proposal is the same as what I'm trying to walk through right now. I'm also providing like context with what we had before and what we're having. So yes, the idea is to get rid of that upfront payment and instead put the penalty in if we don't hear back within 30 days of a FERC appeal.
Great, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Hey, Dinesh, we did get a question from Amy Wong for SEE. It was asking how does the ISO determine the 52 days on the next slide, I think.
About the next topic? or no, this 52 days would have been previous. So good question. It's based off of the, actually, let me just read this. How does it determine 52? Yeah, so it's 52, so it's 52 trading days after the required data, right? So, how did we determine it as a date? Yeah, good question. So all the meter data timelines, all the submittal timelines, it's all at 52 business days. Each is 52 business days. So this would align the monitoring data process with a number of the other processes that are occurring, including with meter data. I saw Amy's hand go up and go down, so I assumed that that must have answered her question.
Yeah, I did see her hand, but feel free to add hands to the queue, anyone. But other than that, I don't see any other questions, Dinesh.
Okay, great, thank you, Brenda. We'll keep it moving then to the next slide. Okay, so this is the streamlining the rules of conduct investigative process. So currently, the process includes 3 letters, right? So notice, findings, penalty, description. At each step, there's a 30-day period for stakeholder input or appeal. PEDRIT instead proposes a 2-letter process with a notice of findings that includes the penalty description, right? So currently, you get a finding of saying, oh, hey, the ISO believes that there's been a violation of this specific tariff, and then it's 30 days for an appeal, followed by, okay, now the ISO finds that this is how much the penalty should be. So something to note here is that this 3-letter process was originally designed for complex penalty investigations with undefined penalty amounts. Today, the ISO instead issues traffic ticket-like penalties with all subjectivity under FERC jurisdiction. Second, combined with the proposed scoring topic, note that stakeholders aren't immediately hit with a penalty statement after the final letter of investigation. So by merging the notice of findings with the penalty description, we're not actually, we're avoiding that, we're not reducing that amount of time there because it's getting put in on the back end. Streamlining would reduce our administrative burden and decrease the time between the violation and penalty issuance, which given that the overall point of the rules of conduct is to incentivize compliance and timely compliance, we believe that reducing that amount of time will help further the mission. The other change that we're proposing is to define the scheduling coordinator as a channel of communication. Doing so will allow the ISO to transition investigations from email records to city and reduce overall administrative burden from tracking and sending to non-scheduling coordinators. Generator owners will continue to have the opportunity to open a city ticket independent of the scheduling coordinator. 2 stakeholders will raise concerns about the initial direction of this topic. There was consideration to merge the rules of conduct investigative process with the settlements dispute process. The proposal has changed since then, and we welcome feedback on whether this new proposal satisfies the concerns of maintaining generation owner independence. Any questions, comments? We have Lisa on the line.
So it looks like we do have a hand raise from Lisa. Caller, your line's unmuted.
Power. So going back to kind of the FERC appeal slide before this combined with this slide, would it be at the end of the findings that the results of review would occur and that's when the 30 days would be triggered?
Yes, at that final letter, yes, that triggers that 30-day clock for filing at FERC and also providing us with that information. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like
We
we
do
do
have-
have another. Oh, yeah, another hand raised.
Thank you, Ryan. Go ahead.
All right, caller, your line is unmuted. Please go ahead.
Hi, this is Jennifer Gerard at Idaho Power again. Just to follow up with what Lisa had asked. So I think there had been discussion earlier on in the rules of conduct where we talked about potentially notifying participants of, this would be the case of probably missing meter data earlier. Is that still going to be kind of looked at as part of this initiative, or is that already in place today? I'm just kind of thinking about the timing of the notices, because kind of the way it works today, there's the first notice, but it happens already after that 52B cutoff. So is the idea, would there be an earlier notice just to have missing, like the potential that data is missing?
And specifically for, good question. So specifically for for meter data, I believe this is the focus of your question, is for missing meter data prior to the T+52B deadline. In track 1, which was implemented on Monday, we did have a provision in there about having courtesy notice prior to the deadline. So those reports will start coming from that T+52 trade date. So in the next couple of months, you will see that being implemented. It's looking like from our end, it's going to be manual at first. So we'll have the respective EDAS team send out the manual courtesy notice. And in a couple months, that will be moving towards automated courtesy notice system where scheduling coordinators can go in and see what missing data there is prior to the T+52B deadline.
Okay, great. And then with this letter process on the first initial notice, is the idea you would still file a city ticket to respond to that initial notice? Or
Yes,
is there, okay. Thank
that
you.
is correct. None of that is changing. So that's stays for current and in the new proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And just wanted to, Brenda, thank you for posting the registration attendee list for today's meeting. I see that's linked in the chat now. Okay, so the final topic for today is a discussion about inaccurate meter data, materiality threshold, or waiver. So we received comments from Idaho Power expressing that a desire for the ISO to consider this topic, and specifically to consider a materiality impact threshold. For example, if the meter data inaccuracy is below a certain percentage or megawatt value submitted by T+T14B, the ISO would not consider that inaccuracy as a tariff violation, and therefore it would not trigger a rules of conduct investigative process or penalties. The stakeholder believes the materiality impact threshold would support self-reporting, leading to more inaccurate data and improving market function. This entity also believes a materiality threshold will reduce administrative burden, as you will be seeing less of very, very small penalty changes, penalties based off of very, very small inaccurate meter data. So the City of Corona recommended through public comments after the June 7th, 2023 workshop that the ISO reconsider allowing waivers if a first offense is self-reported and or minor. The city believes the waivers would support self-reporting, which would lead to more participants to perform the desired behavior by the deadline. In both situations, a market participant would be unlikely to be a bad actor and quote-unquote bad actor, and minor could be objectively defined via this stakeholder process. Finally, the Department of Market Monitoring recommended through public comments after that same workshop that the ISO maintained strict deadlines and financial penalties for not meeting the deadline. The structure creates important incentives for market participants to perform the desired behavior by the deadline. Removing the penalty for a particular submission deadline could result in increased non-compliance of that deadline over time. Okay, with that being said, if Idaho Power, City of Corona, DMM, anything to add at this point? Also, opening the floor to discussion and additional perspectives from stakeholders. We would love to hear additional thoughts. Any questions? Now's a great time to do so.
Go ahead, Jennifer. Your line should be unmuted.
Hi, Jennifer Gerard, Idaho Power. I guess the only thing just to add, so kind of people can understand where we're coming from. Kind of the idea is, some of the things that we've experienced had to do with, maybe there was something that in implementation you find an error that was very, very small, but it might last over a period of time, and then you make the correction, but it might be a fraction of a megawatt, less than a megawatt, right? And so the idea is there any type of maybe materiality threshold that could be considered in these types of instances? Because what we've experienced with, one of our recent appeals to FERC, which, to waive the penalty was related to a similar issue. And the amount of time and effort to really, both on behalf of CAISO as well as Idaho Power and to appeal and to really kind of work through that process, it probably at the end of the day was very, very, for a very, very small minor error, really wasn't, if there was a materiality threshold, would probably have been more appropriate. So that's kind of the thought is a consideration of looking at something like that. So just wanted to give a little context for everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.
There's no more questions. Dinesh, do you like to go to slide 15?
Yeah, let's continue at this time. And do note that we will be able to, but you'll be able to provide written comments as well on this topic. So if this is something that you'd like to consider more deeply and take your teams, please feel free to add as much context as possible for those written comments due April 19th. Okay, at this point, I know that this has been a bit more quiet as a stakeholder call. So any questions and also anything that we haven't covered at this point that you'd like to cover related to the PEDRIT initiative, that would be a great time to do so. I think with that, Brenda, let's move this to next steps then. Please take the floor.
Great, thanks, Dinesh. So next steps is that we do have that commenting due on April 19th of this year. We have that commenting tool will be available later today. I'm working with the communications team to make sure it's posted. And also the upcoming deadlines are that we do have it planned on May 16th to post the ISO revised draw proposal following the stakeholder call on May 23rd. We do plan to notice those, and we'll have that available on the website on the policy initiative for PEDRIT. And then next we have, it's just a link to the, this link doesn't, this one is actually the rules of conduct, but I did add on the chat the one that goes directly to the penalty and penalty enhancements, demand response investigation, and tolling webpage. So please use that one. Any questions, let us know. We will route those over, but please use that commenting tool template. It has an area to add questions and attachments so we can review those as we have time from now till the 19th. The next is that we do have a stated date for the California new resource implementation. This hybrid call meeting will be held on May 1st, 2024 at Folsom at the ISO office. We plan to collaborate with the stakeholder community and provide presentations. And this is similar to what we've done in the past with the Interconnections Fair. This one includes other areas that will be showing about summer operations, summer readiness, and outlining other processes that the team and other departments are doing to prepare for upcoming summer operations. But if you do plan to come to the working group in person, please register as soon as you can. It's free, and also we look forward to seeing more people on site for this meeting, and we do have virtual participation available for that meeting. Agenda is also available right now, but we may add a few more presentations on there, but the topics are kind of firming up as we get closer to that date. The public forum webpage is also there as well. So hopefully we can see everyone there and spread the word. The next is that we have a stakeholder-led working group meeting coming up on April 22nd this month. This one is in continuation of the annual policy initiatives roadmap with discretionary policy initiatives catalog. We plan to have this as a virtual meeting and have stakeholders present on numerous topics that they submitted earlier this year for the 2024 discretionary policy initiatives. We do have a spreadsheet with all the 31 responses and comments we received, as well as the process of what we're doing. So it's very different from prior years, but we plan to incorporate this working group to collaborate with all stakeholders that submitted. So feel free to attend, and we will have that recording posted under this annual policy catalog 2024 roadmap, and that would be there too. So a notice will go out later this week, as well as the virtual details. And lastly, we do have a save the date for October 30th, 2024 for Sacramento Stakeholder Symposium. We plan to have a welcome reception the day before the symposium, and this one-day event will be filled with a lot of panelists and a lot of speakers and a lot of opportunities to meet other stakeholders. And we're looking forward to a great symposium, since we had one like 2 years ago. So feel free to keep an eye out for a future notice coming up later this month, and registration and sponsorship opportunities as well. So really look forward to seeing more new people for this event. We did have 881 people come on our last 2022 Stakeholder Symposium. So this year we're hoping to have a large crowd as well for this year in State Credit Union Convention Center. But with that, Dinesh, I don't see any other questions in queue, but I'm happy to keep it open for a few seconds or a few minutes in case there are questions. But we will have this recording posted later this week, next week possibly, for those who were able to make it this call. But Ryan, do you see any questions in queue that I might have missed in audio?
We currently do not have any hands raised, nor do we have any hands raised in the phone only line.
We'll be good to close it out then. Thank you very much, Brenda.
Thank you, Dinesh, and great job, team. We appreciate everyone's feedback and looking forward to all those comments. And keep an eye on the deadline. We did move that deadline a little bit to accommodate, because we do have a lot of deadlines for commenting for that week. So we moved ours a little bit on the Friday, and we do have another deadline on the 18th for the greenhouse gas. So we are kind of working together to make sure commenting tools deadlines are not on the same day. So we appreciate everyone's feedback as we move forward through our stakeholder process. So with that, thanks to everyone, Ryan and Dinesh, Uma, Priyanka, Angelica, Hueda, thanks for joining us, panelists, and we hope to talk to you soon next time. Bye now.
All right, that concludes our conference. All attendees may now disconnect.